A legacy is not the titles that we held. It's not the roles that you play. It's the difference that you make. I've said this many times I speak to people is, what do you want your kids and your grandkids to say about you?
That's Michael Dowling, back on Irish Stew, reflecting on his life after stepping down as CEO of New York's largest healthcare system, his ongoing commitment to public service, his evolving sense of purpose, his distinctly Irish leadership style, and the significance of the award Glucksman Ireland House will bestow on him at its March 3rd gala. And I'm John Lee. But missing from this episode is the deeply resonant voice of co-host Martin Nutty, laid low by bronchitis and quarantined in the control booth for this episode. So now, on to our global Irish conversation with the optimistic elder statesman of public service, Michael Dowling. Michael, welcome back to your third appearance on Irish Stew. I think only your friend at Glucksman Ireland House, Ted Smith, has you beat.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Michael, the reason we wanted to talk to you now is learning that you will receive on March 3rd a terrific honor from Glucksman Ireland House. We'll get into that in just a moment, but let's catch up with you because I know a lot has changed for you since we last spoke in the fall of 2024. Or has it really?
Life is a series of changes. Life is a series of journeys. And for the last 30 years, I have worked at Northwell. I started out at Northwell University Hospital and was Chief Operating Officer as we started to build a health system. And then I was CEO for 23 years. So I decided 2 years ago that after 23 years, it was important to begin to work on succession. And that's for the good of the organization. The organization, especially in a situation where the CEO has been around for an awful long time, employees and everybody else wants to know what is the future going to look like. Everybody knows that your term or your tenure in any one role like this is going to end at some point, and they want to know what is the succession like. So I decided to step down, which I did last October. The person who succeeds me is a person who's worked for me for about 24 years. I have stepped down, but I haven't stepped away. I could never retire. People ask me, what is retirement like? They ask my wife, what is retirement like? And she says, I haven't seen any difference. I am somebody that has to work, has to be involved. I enjoy the battles. So I'm working at Northwell full-time for the next 2 years. And I work on the succession with the new leadership team. And there's a whole series of areas that we can get into if you wish that I want to focus on. And I'm writing another book. And I'm very involved nationally, and I'm quite involved in Ireland. So I'm very busy, but it's different. But you've got to move forward. You can't always spend your time looking back. You go through a series of engagements and journeys, as I said, and then you've got to decide to look forward and decide what you want to do for the next chapter in your life.
Michael, I had the feeling that retirement for you wasn't golf and margaritas down in Del Boca Vista.
No, that's not for me at all. It's not as hectic as it was before. It gives me a little bit more time to spend time with my wife. And I've always worked 7 days a week. Now I work on the weekends. I do some work, but it's not as hectic as it was before. So I have more family time, which is important, and more time to sit back and think and write and reflect. And I do a lot of public speaking. And that is something I enjoy. But full retirement, which means stopping, that will never be me. I want to walk off the field. I don't ever want to be taken off the field.
Maybe you just mention just a couple of the threads with Northwell, one of the largest health systems in the United States, certainly a major healthcare player in New York State. What are some of the threads you're looking to either tease out or tie up over the next 2 years?
Well, I'm very involved in, and I've always been very interested in leadership developments. How do you prepare leaders for the future? And at Northwell, over the past 25 years, we created a nationally renowned Center for Learning and Innovation, which is a leadership institute. And now you have to look at what is the next iteration of it, because things change. The expectations of employees today are different than they were years ago. The new technologies that have entered the marketplace, AI and everything that everybody talks about. And healthcare, of course, has changed to some extent. So How do we prepare leaders now for the future, given the demographic changes, etc.? So I'm very interested in that. And the second area that I am very interested in and spent all morning today on it is the issue of mental health. It is one of the fastest growing problem areas that we have. And it's always been a problem, but I think it's being accelerated. And we need to do an awful lot more to figure out how to address it, how to deal with it, especially my interest, mental health issues as it pertains to adolescents and teenagers, and the relationship between social media and mental health issues. The next biggest issue I think all healthcare providers have to tackle is the ill health associated with the addiction to social media. We've never seen anything like the acceleration of depression, anxiety, and suicide that we've seen since about 2012. It's pretty extraordinary, and we see the results of it in our facilities. We now have a major suicide prevention program, which we had to double in size about 3 months ago. So I work on the mental health issue.
Could I ask you a little bit more about that? Because this is a really interesting topic. I think before you get to the point of suicide prevention, there's that sort of withdrawal. There's that introversion, that thinking you're living your life when all you're doing is looking at your phone.
We have so many young people living in a virtual world.
Yeah.
And not living in the real world in many ways. They're addicted to it. You watch people, you go to dinner and you look at the table next to you, and if there are young people at the table, in all likelihood, they're not engaged in any conversation. They're not socializing with their parents or friends. They're on the phone. They're engrossed in it and addicted to it. I think that there are serious ill health effects associated with this, and I think it requires major commitment by everybody. At Northwell, I am working to raise money to build a new facility focused on mental health of adolescents, but make it part of the children's hospital so less we don't stigmatize mental health like it has been in the past. And you should be able to go into a children's hospital, and whether you have a digestive problem or a heart problem or a mental health problem, you see it in the one place. We don't take you, if you have a mental health issue, and say you go to a separate building distinct from where we now are and stigmatized. Although the stigma issue is a little bit less than it was years and years ago, because I was involved in the mental health issue when I was in government more than 30 years ago. I oversaw mental health issues for the state of New York. But I think social media has become a real issue that needs to be addressed. While we talk about all of the benefits of social media, we've got to talk about the underbelly of it, which I think is very dangerous.
Michael, you're hinting on a lot of broader topics that we could pull out from the areas you've already covered. But looking at your decades in healthcare and public life, what changes have most shaped your understanding of public service?
On the healthcare side, I think that we have to recognize the unbelievable advances that have been made in healthcare over the last 50 years. There's a lot of criticism, and there is legitimacy for some criticism, but it has to be balanced. Because if you look at what we were not able to do in the 1960s and 70s, that today we just do easily, it's extraordinary. If you had a cardiac problem in the 1960s, 70s, there wasn't much we could do. Today we can replace your heart. What we can do with kids today, with pediatric cases today, what we do with brain health today, is an unbelievable positive story that needs to be told. I actually wrote a book about this, about the positive aspects of advancements in the healthcare space. All of us, we're living much longer because of advances in healthcare. So that's something to be proud of. One of the other changes, as you mentioned, is that more and more care is not in the hospitals anymore. The bulk of care anymore is in the ambulatory, outpatient, post-acute elder care issues. For example, in Northwell, and people are surprised about this, only 47% of our total business at Northwell is hospital inpatient business. Mm-hmm. Everybody thinks, oh, you're a big system, you have a lot of hospitals, therefore everything is all about hospitals. That's not the case. So there has been a huge transition away from the hospitals. From a leadership point of view, what I've learned over the years is the unbelievable power of optimism. Leadership is about optimism. It's about giving hope. It's about giving people a sense that no matter how bad things are or how bad the difficulty is, there is a bright future ahead. And we took that stance even during the COVID crisis. I think all leaders have to be proponents of optimism. Nobody wants to follow a skeptic. Nobody wants to follow a person who is always down, somebody who is a pessimist. Pessimists don't have followers. A couple of other things I've seen is the changes in education, medical education, represented and not by the Zucker School of Medicine, which is Northwell's medical school, which trains students very differently than the traditional medical school. So there's been lots of advances. You have to continue to do things differently all the time. You can't be wedded to the past and wedded to the status quo. That does not allow you to progress. To me, it's been a wonderful journey of positive change after positive change. So we're in a much better position today than we were years ago. Our kids have the advantages and our grandkids that we never even imagined that were possible. That's all good. Now we have to improve access to care. We have to improve insurance coverage. We have to deal with the affordability issues. So there's lots to be done. It is not a finished product at all, but we have to look at the future from a base of strength, not a base of weakness.
Michael, you're painting a portrait here of a career beyond healthcare in public service. And for that service, you're going to be honored by the Glucksman Ireland House with the Outstanding Public Service Award and Lifetime Contribution to Public Health. You're joining quite a honor roll of people who have already received these awards at the Glucksman Gala, including our friend Ted Smith and another Irish Stew guest, Peter Quinn, but many other luminaries, Pete Hamill, Colin McCann, James Galway, Alice McDermott, Neil O'Dowd. I'm sure you're no stranger to picking up an award. What does getting this award in the Irish context mean?
The Glucksman House is a very famous place. It's a unique institution. And obviously, Loretta Glucksman is an icon, an extraordinary individual. And the Glucksman House being basically the center of Irish and Irish-American studies, Irish-American history, publications coming out of there are pretty extraordinary. It reminds us of our heritage, reminds us of our history, reminds us of our contribution to not just Ireland, but to America and its building of America, and contributions that Irish people have made internationally. Because at the Glucksman House, it's not just Irish people that get their learnings from there. I mean, people from all nationalities are welcome, which is a great thing because it builds and grows the cross-fertilization of ideas about Irish culture and history to all cultures and all peoples across the world. So to get an honor like this is an unbelievable privilege, and I'm excited about it and looking forward to the evening. And also on public service, I think public service is a wonderful calling. I think we need to reinterest a lot of young people in the benefits of getting into public service and contributing to public service. And we live in a world today where negativism is rampant, where division is rampant, where we have a vacuum in leadership in many aspects of government today, including at the national level. And so I think we need to re-engender this idea that being in the public service, as I was for 12 years with this wonderful Governor Mario Cuomo, being in the public service, we promote that sense of community, that sense of togetherness, that sense of overall community health, where you're focused on making life better for others. At the end of the day, that's what we leave behind. Our legacy is not the titles that we held. It's not the roles that you play. It's the difference that you make. I've said this many times I speak to people is, what do you want your kids and your grandkids to say about you?
Well, let me ask you that, Michael.
It's that you did your best to work in concert with everybody in a kind, humane way to make life better for other people and create a better situation so that the next generation can benefit from what we did. And the values that you hold today are very important. I'm a big proponent of the values of kindness and decency and integrity and honesty and truth, which we have to work very hard to maintain. And the value of democracy. And America is an experiment in democracy. It's very hard to get there, and it's even harder to keep it. We need to continue to promote the concept that democracy is a positive. I think we all have an obligation to make life better for others and do the best we possibly can and be an example to others and do things the right way. Best definition I've ever come across of leadership, and it applies to the public service as well as the private sector, which is leadership is about managing the present, selectively forgetting the past, and creating the future. And you can't, nostalgia is not a strategy. You can't go back, as many people in the current leadership nationally are trying to do, is go back to the 1950s. We ain't going back to the 1950s. We got a plan for the next 50 years, not try to reimagine and go back to 50 years ago. Plus, it wasn't as good as everybody thinks it was anyway. It's forward looking, giving oxygen to hope. And that's what the Glucksman Institute does. The Glucksman Institute, in revisiting history, it lets people understand what was. Because if you don't know history, it's very hard to know where you are and very difficult to figure out where you should be going in the future. History shapes us and it grounds us all. And that's what the Glucksman House is doing.
Michael, let's stay on that Irish theme for a bit. I'm going to cast you in the role as elder statesman in the area of leadership, Irish-born, U.S.-trained leadership. How do you express optimism about strengthening the ties between Irish America and Ireland today?
As you know, I'm quite involved in Ireland as well, and I'm quite involved in a lot of the Irish organizations. So I think the Irish, and especially now as we move into St. Patrick's Day, a couple of weeks from now, I think the Irish in America here have a wonderful reputation. Every nationality admires the Irish. In St. Patrick's Day, everybody wants to be Irish. And in Ireland, they look at America as this wonderful refuge, and it became a refuge for millions of Irish people that had to leave in the 1840s, 1850s, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think we got to continue to build Irish and Irish-American relationships. And I think having our leaders both here and our leaders abroad continuing to communicate, continuing to work together, in many ways building off what the Glucksman House is doing, I think will be a positive for both Ireland and a positive for America. And I think it's those of us in positions where we have some potential influence have to be talking about what's positive about the Irish and Irish-American relationship and Irish culture and its history. I don't think we teach history today like we should. So many people don't know much about the past. The past is, to a lot of younger people, is what happened last month. I was giving a talk to employees recently, and the issue of 9/11 came up. And I started to talk about 9/11, and I realized that the bulk of people in the room didn't really know what I was talking about. And I was flabbergasted. And there was about 200 people in the room. And then I had to remember that most of them were in their mid-20s. But 9/11 was pretty well foreign to them. And that is something that is a negative with regard to the education we give. It's similar with the Irish history. I think we got to promote Irish history more, and the contributions that Irish made, along with a lot of other countries and a lot of other nationalities, to the building of the United States. It wasn't the Irish alone. It was their ability to work with others that made America the way it is. So I think that we got to continue to promote that unity between Ireland and America. And I hope to be able to play a little bit of a part of a role in that.
Michael, as the elder statesman here, looking into the future, is there one thing, that high-level view, is there one thing that makes you optimistic?
I'm optimistic by nature. I think the progress that we're seeing in the medical field, in the technology field, if we know how to use it properly, I think will allow us to get the future generation to take advantage of the benefits that many of us in the past never had. And so young people give me a sense of positivity, even though I'm frustrated with the virtual world that so many of them live in. But you can't give up on the younger generations, and I don't think we should. I think that they will be a center of excellence going forward and a center of hope. And so whenever I'm with young people, I feel very hopeful. I gave a lecture last week at one of the local universities to a couple of hundred young students from all over the world. And I spent a lot of time with them after the talk, and positive, upbeat, frustrated with some of the things that are going on policy-wise, but all wanting to excel, all believing in the American idea, all wanting to contribute. That's what gives me hope. There's one other caveat. We got to make sure that we embrace the benefits of immigration, that we embrace peoples from all cultures, because we live in a global village. You can't be disconnected from an interconnected world. And there is a tendency in the United States right now to try to isolate. ourselves from others. That would be a terrible, terrible, disastrous mistake. And I don't think it can work. But we've got to embrace people from all over the world that we are now always integrated with anyway. So different than it was in the 1940s and 50s. I can pick up the phone and talk to friends of mine in Africa.
Yeah.
In seconds. You can't disassociate yourself from that. And we all benefit from diversity. I wrote a piece on that recently. I think it got published in one of the Irish magazines on the benefits of diversity. And I think we Irish people have to understand that when our predecessors came to the United States, we were not treated by others that were here before. But that's the history of the United States. And we've just got to make sure those of us with some degree of potential influence have to get people to understand that we all benefit from all cultures, all religions, all ethnicities. And when that global community comes together in a positive way, it benefits everybody.
Great thoughts to pause and reflect on for a moment. While I'm doing that, I'd like to ask what's next for Michael Dowling. You alluded to some of the things you're already working on. What are we going to see from you over the next few years, and what are you going to do for fun?
I want to spend more time getting involved in some of the Irish organizations. I've been involved, but more peripherally because I've been so inundated with other issues. But I'm quite involved with the Irish Arts Centre, quite involved with the American Irish Historical Society. In Ireland, I'm very involved with the Royal College of Surgeons, the Royal College of Physicians. I'm involved with UCD, with University of Galway, with University of Limerick, and with University of Cork. So I want to spend a portion of my time continuing to build and enhance the Irish influence in the United States and vice versa. I'm writing another book. I'm writing a book on leadership. Don't know what the title yet will be, but I'm trying to look back at my time in academia, my time in government, my time in healthcare, and lessons learned. What are the cross-cutting lessons that could be helpful to new potential leaders of the future? So I'm working on that. And as I had mentioned, the leadership development issues and the mental health issues are of special interest to me. And obviously, I think that we need more people to be spokespersons about the values of decency and respect and humanity and caring. We seem to be, especially in our public policies, we seem to be losing that sense of humanity. I'm always reminded by a phrase by Daniel O'Connell, who was the head of a Catholic emancipation in the 1830s. And I'm reading about him recently, I came across a quote. He said, "Nothing is politically correct that is morally wrong." There's a lot in that statement because we're doing a lot of things nationally and internationally that might be politically correct, but are inhumane and morally wrong. And I think we Irish have to point that out. It's not just doing what's right, it's doing the right things. And the United States have to continue to be the beacon of hope internationally. It should be promoting democracy internationally. It's promoting the sense of world unity and world community. It is the beacon. And we can walk away from that. And the Irish have been a big part of that beacon of hope for America. I think, 7 members of the signing of the Declaration of Independence was Irish. 190,000 Irish people fought in the Civil War. The history, I think we got to remind people of that. High schools and colleges today, we got to remind people about that history. In St. Patrick's Day coming up, and as I was the Grand Marshal some years ago, but you walk up behind the 69 Regiment. How many people understand the history of the 69 Regiment? Its contributions during the Civil War, for example, and why it was founded and the role the Irish had in it. St. Patrick's Day, it was declared a day of rest by George Washington to give the soldiers a day of rest that were camped in New Jersey. But the bulk of the soldiers camped in New Jersey were Irish. And they had been in dire circumstances for months, and he gave a day of rest. He said March 17th will be a day of rest. But there was a whole Irish connection here. We need to be talking about this more because history educates. And I get frustrated to the extent that we're sometimes forgetting it. The Glucksman House brings history back. It writes about history and writes about the contributions, and I think that's very important.
Michael, thank you so much for all of this. You've been through the drill before, but this time we introduce you once again to Seamus Plug, your chance to plug away and let our listeners know what's important to you.
I would say the Irish Stew is it's a wonderful podcast. You do great work. I've been with you many times. I want to thank you for being in the education business. You're educating people, you're informing people, you're getting people to think, you're getting people to dream, you're getting people to look at the past, but also to look at the future. And everybody should be in a constant state of comfortable flux. Standing still doesn't get you anywhere. You got to move, and you got to keep your brain active and your body active. And it's a combination of a lot of things, just like a traditional Irish stew. It's a combination of quite a number of things. So you bring all of that to life. And I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you having me on. And I look forward to the March 3rd event at Glucksman House and getting the honor. And Loretta Glucksman is probably one of the heroes in the Irish stage. And it's not just her work here, it's her work in Ireland. And what she does is to bring people together and promote a sense of humility, strength, and kindness to the world around us.
Michael, that was the finest Seamus Plug segment we've ever aired. We thank you for that. And I'm sure we'll invite you back when the leadership book comes out. So maybe you can catch up with Ted Smith in appearances.
Anytime.
And thank you so much. Congratulations on the honor. Glucksman Ireland House, that will be on Tuesday, March 3rd. It's a gala event. There are tickets still left, but I don't think there are too many. So hop on their website, get your ticket. And we look forward to hearing another message of optimism from you, Michael.
And if you don't attend, contribute.
Very good. To paraphrase Michael Dowling, legacy isn't titles or roles. It's the difference you make in whether you are kind, decent, and honest. Love to hear that kind of thinking today. He's a man who refuses to retire, advocating for youth mental health, democracy, immigration, and public service, deepening his involvement in global Irish institutions, and writing a book on leadership, which we'd be happy to explore in what would be his fourth Irish Stew appearance. How could we refuse Michael after that glowing Seamus plug? We congratulate Michael Dowling for the outstanding public service and lifetime contribution to public health award, which Glucksman Ireland House will bestow on him at its gala on Tuesday, March 3rd at the Mandarin Oriental Hotel in Manhattan. The link is in our show notes. And thanks also to our partners, Irish Central, where you'll now find the Irish Stew podcast, along with the latest on global Irish news, culture, travel, entertainment, food, drink, sport, and more, all at irishcentral.com. Our next episode actually drops Wednesday when we talk to Ruan McGann about the two films he has in the Solas Nua Capital Irish Film Festival this coming weekend. And we'll be there February 26th through March 1st as the podcast in residence, recording one of our episodes live on stage Friday evening, exploring Northern Irish film. We hope to see you there.
Irish Stew is produced by John Lee, Martin Nutty, and Bill Schultz. Editing, mixing, and mastering by Bill Schultz. Music on Irish Stew was composed and performed by Rosa Nutty, with Donald Bones on drums, Cathal O'Riordan on bass and synthesizer. For more on Rosa Nutty's music, please visit rosanutty.com.